Welcome to the Just Because Diaries, where real life meets random chats and plenty of mom moments, all while reclaiming joy in the seemingly mundane. I'm Celeste, a mom but also a whole ass person, navigating the balance of motherhood while rediscovering the joy in doing things just for myself. From the chaos of parenting to the little moments that make life fun, nothing is off limits. So grab a cup of coffee or something stronger and let's get into it. This week, I'm opening up about my lifelong relationship with weight, body image, and diet culture. And I'm sharing why I have finally decided to ask for help in a way that I never have before. And later, a Just Because moment featuring whimsical lilac cookies for a little springtime joy. And I am also getting over a cold, so my sincere apologies for the nasaliness that is my voice. I have started taking a GLP-1 and I have been hiding it from literally everyone except 3 people in my life: David, my therapist, and a friend who also takes one. This is really hard and uncomfortable for me to talk about because I just don't talk about weight with anyone ever. I feel so much shame and embarrassment when it comes to my weight and the way that I look. But those feelings didn't just pop up over taking a GLP-1. They have been something that has been a part of me since childhood. Ever since I was small, like elementary school aged, I was seen as the chubby girl or told that I was big boned, whatever that means. And on many occasions, I was just straight up called fat. Those words became such a part of my belief system about myself that at some point in time, I began to equate my own name, Celeste, with being fat. Like, I had this really insane logic that, of course, my name was Celeste because that meant fat and I was fat. It's crazy, I know, but it's just how I felt. I spent a lot of my childhood overhearing conversations about my weight, but I think I need to say that I was not an obese child. I was just a kid. Yes, I was bigger than my friends who were all tall and thin, but when I look back on photos of little me, I don't see this super unhealthy child. I just see a little kid. But of course, that's not what I thought back then. I grew up thinking that something was wrong with the way I looked, and I never thought how I looked was good enough. And it didn't help that all I wanted was to belong and to be able to wear the same things that my friends got to wear, but I couldn't. I grew up in California, so summers were spent at the beach. And while all of my friends were in their 2-piece swimsuits, I was always in a 1-piece, no matter how much I wanted to wear the same things as my friends. Eventually, maybe in like middle school, I begged enough and I was finally allowed to get a 2-piece. And I remember feeling so excited and so confident. I wore that thing ragged and I felt so good in my swimsuit, even if I wasn't tiny and even if I still got called fat or chubby while I was wearing it, because I got to wear the same things that my friends were wearing and I got to feel like I finally fit in. But then all it took was a pair of jeans to make me feel like I was so very different all over again. Jeans just didn't fit me, or at least the ones that I tried on didn't fit me. And then one day, my mom told me that her friend told her about a brand of jeans that offered bigger sizing. And that is how I got my first pair of jeans. They weren't normal jeans. They weren't Levi's or whatever brand. They were some kind of special jean for quote unquote big boned girls because I wasn't the right fit for jeans. It was very bittersweet because even though I felt like I finally got my pair of jeans and could kind of belong, I also felt like I still didn't belong because they had to come from some special jean store. And the me that I am today knows that clothes should fit you, not the other way around. But back then, it very much felt like I was the problem and that I was the one that needed to be fixed, which made sense considering diet culture had already been a part of my life since I was a kid. I was fairly young when I started eating non-fat everything and those frozen diet dinners that you see at the grocery store. I had those every single night for dinner. My favorites were always the ones that came with this little like cherry dessert, if you can even call it that. It was really more just like a ball of cherry goo. And then I was in Weight Watchers in high school, and I was the youngest person in those meetings, by the way. And as I got older, the methods changed many, many, many times, but the mentality was always the same, that I needed to be fixed. At one point in high school, I was suffering from depression because of things that were happening in my life at the time. And as a result, I wasn't eating very much. And I remember thinking to myself, well, at least I'll lose some weight. As fucked up as that is, that's just how I felt. But the first thing I learned about my body was that it needed to be better. I was a kid and I was dieting, and then people would congratulate me or my parents whenever I lost a few pounds, and they would ask how I did it so that they could do the same for their chubby kid. But do you know what I think really happened? What this big secret to me losing weight was? I went through puberty. I grew up. I got taller. I thinned out, just like my brother did. But no one ever told him he was fat or chubby or big boned or made him diet. But anyway, after puberty, the diet still continued because then BMI became common practice. And I now had doctors telling me that my BMI was too high, which, for the record, I think that BMI is insanely stupid and literally tells the story of just one single piece of an entire puzzle. But regardless, at that time, at my thinnest and most active and athletic point in my life, I had doctors telling me that my body was still not good enough. They actually gave me like a goal weight for me to reach. So off I went, and the diets just continued on and off from that point. And I never reached that goal, no matter how hard I tried, because that number is just not attainable for me and my body, no matter what the BMI calculator says. But I didn't know that then, and I held myself to that goal and that ridiculous standard forever. I always had that number in my head, and I was always trying to reach that impossible goal. And then I'd beat myself up every time I couldn't reach it, which was every single time. Eventually, in my 20s, I felt somewhat at peace about my body. I felt like I was generally happy in it, even though I wasn't the weight I wanted to be at. But I can now acknowledge that it wasn't real peace because I hadn't done the deeper work that needed to be done at that point. It was kind of like a Band-Aid mentality of this is fine, when really there's like a whole festering wound underneath. And then in my late 20s, I was pregnant with Miles. I didn't gain a ton of weight during my pregnancy, but when he was born, I really struggled with breastfeeding. And I was told that I just needed to eat more. So I ate more. And then I felt like my body had failed me twice. First, because I was not producing enough breast milk, and then by rewarding my effort to fix it with weight that I didn't want. I felt betrayed by the very thing that was supposed to be the most natural to me, and that was so very, very devastating. I remember ordering a pair of pants online that were 2 sizes larger than what I had been before I was pregnant with Miles. And when they came in, I tried them on and I could barely get them up all the way, let alone even try to button or zip them. And I had a complete and total breakdown about it. At that point, I was the largest I had ever been in my life, and that was really, really, really hard for me to grapple with. It was bad enough in my own mind that I had to order 2 sizes above what I had been, but then for those pants to not even fit was just earth-shattering to me. I felt so much shame and so much embarrassment, and if I'm totally honest, I definitely felt a bit of resentment towards breastfeeding. A couple years from that meltdown, but unrelated to my weight issues, I started therapy. And as I've been in therapy, my body image issues come up often, and it's something that I am still working on today. One thing that I really struggle with in general, but also when it comes to weight loss, is accepting help, or even just asking for help. I knew that there were options out there for me that I could speak to doctors about. And while I think that they're all amazing and great for absolutely anyone in the world who could benefit from them, when it came to me benefiting from those same exact medications, I felt shame. I felt like it wasn't okay for me to benefit from those methods, which I know makes zero sense. That is until, for the first time ever, I had a doctor who actually listened to me and she heard my concerns and what I had to say. She didn't just try to brush me off and pass me along to yet another nutritionist who would give me yet another flyer about what perfect portions look like. Instead, she ran blood work, and that blood work revealed things about myself that no other doctor had ever taken the time to test or explain. So, with that knowledge, we came up with a plan, and I began taking oral weight loss medications on top of paying attention to movement and lifestyle choices and all that jazz, just to see what would happen. And the meds did help until they just didn't anymore, which was something that I had known may happen, a plateau. So for the last year, I have been sitting with the idea of taking a GLP-1. I have been battling with myself over this decision because of the stigma around it. More often than not, the things that I hear people say about people who use GLP-1s are not positive. And while I would never, ever judge anyone for using a GLP-1 or any medication for that matter, I can't deny that there is a lot of judgment around them. And I was worried that people would think that I was taking the easy way out or something. But after decades of struggling with diets and weight, I finally realized that there has never been anything easy about any of this for me. So after a lot of mostly talking it out in therapy, because I was too embarrassed to talk to anyone else about it, and of course talking to David about it as well, I decided that I was going to talk to my doctor about GLP-1s. I was going to ask her all of my questions and hear what she had to say, and most importantly, ask her if she thinks that a GLP-1 would be a good fit for me. And I did just that. I had my appointment with her a couple of weeks ago, and I was so incredibly nervous. I had this huge fear that she would just laugh at me and just straight up reject me. But I went anyway, and I took my written list of questions and asked every single one. I asked for clarification if I needed it, and ultimately, I asked her if a GLP-1 would be a good fit for me, and she said yes. She didn't reject me or laugh in my face. She just said yes. So I told her that I would like to move forward, and last week I took my first dose of tirzepatide, which, by the way, I had to give myself while listening to my walkout song, which is Don't Stop Me Now by Queen, because I was so terrified. I was so scared of the needle and to give myself the shot that I needed to hype myself up. So Don't Stop Me Now by Queen has never let me down, and it didn't in that moment either. I don't know how this journey is going to go. All I know is that I am not trying to be the tiniest I can be. I obviously don't give two shits about being a certain BMI. I just want to get to a place in my body where I feel good. I'm not going for my crazy goal weight that I could never reach. I just want to feel at peace with my body. And if this medication is a tool that can help me get there, then why wouldn't I give it a try? I am trying really hard to be a cycle breaker when it comes to body image and weight. And I know that this is something that many, many women and moms are also working on too. But for me, doing that as a mom adds another layer, because it's not just about how I feel in my body anymore. It's about what my kids learn from me, what they see, what they grow up believing about themselves. And if I want to break this cycle, then I have to take care of myself too. And they need to see that. No, they won't see the shots, but they will see me moving my body, making meals, tap dancing in the kitchen, and slowly learning to love my body for what it can do. And I don't want to hide anymore. I don't want to carry this shame anymore. And this is super scary, and recording this is terrifying, but you only realize the monster you've been afraid of in the dark was just a pile of clothes if you shine a light on it. So this is me shining a light on it. And if you're listening to this and you've been scared to ask for help in whatever way that looks like for you, I just want you to know that it's okay to ask and that you're deserving of it. I was terrified, but I did it anyway, and so far it has felt really freeing. Alrighty, before jumping into today's Just Because moment, I have a quick update from last episode. So, if you remember, I had asked the question, is it acceptable to have alcohol for the adults at a kids' party? And the consensus from the responses that I got from all of you, which thank you for sending them in, by the way, was that alcohol is acceptable at a kids' party when it is mostly family and close friends. However, what I found interesting was that most everyone felt like it wasn't bad to have alcohol at a kids' party that wasn't in a family or like friend setting. It was just that there was a fear of being judged for doing so outside of that environment, which I completely understand because that was also the same exact fear that I had. So there you go. Is it a bad thing? No, we're all just afraid of being judged. So do with that information what you will, and thank you again for all of your messages. Now, on to our Just Because moment. This episode's dose of whimsy is super family friendly and just something that is really, really fun for spring. If anyone peeped my Instagram over the weekend, you may have seen that I posted a picture of a bowl of lilac flowers, and in the caption, I said that I was going to try something from the internet with them. Well, I did, and it was mostly a success. So last week, I came across an Instagram reel from Alexis Nicole, who is at Black Forager on Instagram. 10 out of 10 recommend giving her a follow, by the way. She is just such a joy to watch. But in her reel, she was sharing how she was going to make cookies out of lilacs, and I was immediately set. We have a couple of huge lilac bushes in our backyard that make me so happy every spring because they just explode with flowers. So I knew right away that I was going to have to try this. In her reel, Alexis takes the lilac flowers and blitzes them with equal weight sugar to flowers, and then she uses the lilac sugar to make sugar cookies. And while her sugar cookies looked amazing, I decided that what I really wanted was lilac shortbread cookies. And wouldn't you know, there is actually a recipe for that on the internet. The recipe that I used came from a site called Baking for Friends, and that recipe also uses lilac sugar, but it's made differently to how Alexis made hers. This version of making the lilac sugar is also super easy still. So I just cut a few stems of lilacs, and then I gave them a little shake in case there were any stray bugs or something. And then I just carefully plucked each little flower off and I put them into a bowl. And I also thanked the lilac bushes for their flowers while I was cutting the stems, which was something that Alexis had done in her reel that I just thought was really sweet and I really loved it. So be sure to thank your lilac bushes. Oh, and I made sure that ours were safe to use. We don't use pesticides or anything like that. But definitely check that if you're grabbing flowers from somewhere else. Anyway, once you have collected 1/3 of a cup of lilac flowers, you combine that with 1 cup of sugar in a glass jar that has a lid. And then you give it a good stir to combine. And then you're supposed to let it sit in the jar for 1 whole week to let the flavors really combine. Well, I did not want to wait a week, so I waited a day, and then I took out the amount I needed for the recipe, and I blitzed it like Alexis had done, and then I continued following the rest of the Baking for Friends shortbread recipe, which was so simple. It's literally 4 ingredients, so I'll make sure to link that in the show notes for you if you would like to try it. Anyway, the recipe said to use a circle cookie cutter, which I don't have because I usually just use the rim of like one of my kids' cups or something. But I stopped myself mid-grab for the cup, and instead I pulled out a Mickey Ears cookie cutter because if I'm making whimsical cookies, I need something more whimsical than a circle. My one mistake, however, was that I, of course, decided to bake my cookies while also making dinner and juggling like 10,000 other tasks. And I totally forgot about them in the oven and overcooked them. I didn't burn them necessarily, but they were very crisp. So I made a redo batch the next day. And you guys, these cookies are just so good. I literally had one right before I started recording. The flavor is just so light and nice. And I loved that you can see little bits of the lilac petals in the actual cookie. And they're just so tasty. They're so, so good. And I also topped mine with a little extra sprinkling of lilac sugar when the cookies were fresh out of the oven, in case anyone wants to try that as well. Miles was our official dough tester, and he loved the flavor of them. He was also just really stoked in general that we were putting flowers in cookies. So that definitely made it way more fun for him as well. But in the end, they were a really big hit with the whole family. So I will be keeping this recipe in my back pocket every single spring. And as an added bonus, you can store your leftover lilac sugar and use it in other things too, like in tea, cocktails, sugar scrubs, baking. Basically, anywhere that you would use sugar, you can use lilac sugar if you would like to add a bit of floral something to the recipe. So go forth, friends, and make yourselves some amazing lilac goodies this spring. Just don't forget to thank the lilacs. I will leave the lilac sugar and lilac shortbread recipe in the show notes for anyone interested. I would love to know if you make those or something else, so please feel free to shoot me an email to thejustbecausediaries@gmail.com and let me know what you end up making. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Just Because Diaries. I love reading your emails, so shoot me a message anytime about anything to thejustbecausediaries@gmail.com. Also, give me a follow on Instagram at thejustbecausediaries. And finally, it would mean the world to me if you could please take a few seconds to rate and review my podcast by hitting that 5-star button and leaving me a little love note in the review section. And please share this episode with a friend who you think might enjoy being part of this budding community. Thank you so much again for listening. I so appreciate you being here, and I'll see you again in a couple of weeks. Bye for now.